and welcome back to Both Sides Book Club, episode number 3.
We hope you enjoyed reading the book.
Be careful what you wish for, because we had a very, very juicy book. We read American Dirt by Jeanine Cummins. Mm-hmm. I selected this book because I could not put it down. When I picked it up from the first page, I was in, and
what a first scene.
I know, seriously, just your heart broke instantly.
Yeah.
Talk about drama within the first scene.
Yes.
And I just thought, okay, wow, if a book is opening up with that, this is going to be a ride and a journey.
Yeah.
So I picked it because I wanted to know what you all thought about that, and what sort of emotional journey you went on when you were reading along with it. So to recap to any of you that may have forgotten what the story was about or haven't read the book yet, the story is about a mother and a son, Lydia and Luca, who are escaping from the Mexican cartel. It opens up with this heart-wrenching scene of a brutal massacre of all of their family members on a birthday party.
Yeah.
And from there you follow this journey that Lydia goes on with her only surviving family member, Luca, who's her son, and just the trials and that she goes through to
protect him.
To protect him and to escape from her really intense circumstance. Yeah, wow. Big book, big themes.
Big themes.
What did you think about it?
Well, I read American Dirt back in the summer, literally as soon as it was published. I'd seen lots of hype about the book beforehand, and I thought, oh wow, this is going to be a great holiday read. So
little did you know.
Little did I know.
Not a holiday read.
So actually I picked it up and read most of it one afternoon, and we were actually going on holiday the next day. I had 100 pages left, and I was in a real dilemma. Should I take the book with me with only 100 pages to read, or should I leave it home?
Yeah.
I took it with me because there was no way that I was not going to finish reading it.
Yeah. I know I felt the same. I read this one Sunday, and I read it in a day. And for me, I felt heartache. I felt exhausted. I felt so much sympathy, and just it really opened my eyes to how intense immigrant stories and what happens across the border. I mean, do you agree?
I mean, I think I read it primarily as just a really fast-paced thriller, if you like. I read it in exactly the same way that I would read a thriller.
Because that's how it opens up. It opens up as a thriller.
Yeah, totally. And for me, the essential elements that constitute a, oh my God, I've just got to binge read this, I can't do anything until I've finished it sort of book are, that opening sequence. Characters that grip you by the heart, a sense of journey, going from one point to the ultimate conclusion, but never quite knowing whether we're going to reach that conclusion. Lots of plot twists and and sideways things that confuse you along the way. Yeah. And for me, the book had all of those. Yeah. I mean, it was a great story.
It starts off as this thriller, but then what I felt like it was a tribute to grief. It was more than just a thriller. It kept you on the edge of the seat, but there was just all this emotion that was coming with it, I think, as well. And that's definitely how I felt when I was reading the book. I was going through it so quickly because I just wanted to see them the situation get better for them. I just was like, when is this going to end? And I think when it opens up with a scene that's that intense, you go, whoa, where is this going to take us?
I mean, I think your point about grief and the way it affected you emotionally is really important, because for me, the book consists, other than the narrative and the actual journey, the journey is dictated by 4 major relationships.
Yep, absolutely.
The relationship between Lydia and her husband Sebastian, the relationship between Lydia and her son Luca, the relationship between Lydia and Javier, and then the relationship between the 2 sisters, and Lydia and Luca.
Yeah, absolutely. How did you feel that Javier felt about his relationship with Lydia? Because you see it from Lydia's perspective in this book, but this book left gaps for me wondering, what did Javier think? Did Javier want to kill Lydia? I'm not convinced. What did you think?
I think the character of Javier is great. I think Jeanine Cummins portrayed him really, really well, because he's very complex. He is not just an out-and-out nasty bad guy. He is portrayed as someone who has a softer side. I mean, he reads books, he writes poetry, he's devoted to his daughter.
Yeah.
And I think there is a genuine relationship, a genuine fondness between him and Lydia. I mean, he is portrayed almost as a victim of his own circumstance, that had his life been differently, had events unfolded in a different way, then perhaps he wouldn't have become the leader of a cartel and had to do all the despicable things that come with that. Yeah. So did he want to kill Lydia? No, I think he probably didn't. Yeah. I think he was prepared to kill Lydia or have Lydia killed if it was necessary. But I do feel that he really didn't want to kill Lydia, and that he wanted Lydia to be able to escape. And that in many ways is why he dispatched his henchmen to keep an eye on them. I mean, that might be naive of me. I mean, I think it's open to interpretation, but that's certainly what I wanted to think.
Yeah, me too. And I mean, what relationship isn't complicated? Love is complicated.
Yeah, I mean that brings me to I'm interested in the initial relationship and the situation between Lydia and Sebastian. So Sebastian, the journalist, obviously was working on the story, or had been working for quite some time on the story about Javier and the cartel, and he found out that Lydia knew Javier and was great friends with him, but he decided to go ahead and publish anyway, knowing that there may be all kinds of consequences, not only putting his life at danger, but also his wife and his sons, and as we saw, his whole family. Do you think that was the right decision to make? Obviously, it was the catalyst for everything happening.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you can say if it was the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do, but I think when you have a burning desire to write about something or release something, as you see in journalists all the time, they feel like, what I've seen is that if you have a story, you have to be able to speak the truth about it and put it out there for people to absorb or not to absorb. So it's kind of like, I don't know if that was the right thing to do. And I think it's that hindsight thing of going, well, because of that, all of this happened. But you just don't know. It's again complicated. And I think there was elements of mistrust as well between Lydia and her husband as well. Like she was still quite secretive about the whole relationship as well.
Because she had feelings for Javier.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think it's more complex than that. Was Sebastian jealous? Did he want to create drama? I don't know.
Yeah, and of course, he did actually ask Lydia, "What do you think
we should do?
We should do." Yeah. And Lydia, in fact, told him, "No, go ahead. We won't tell Javier. Go ahead and publish it." Yeah,
which, it still makes me question what was their relationship. Like Sebastian and Lydia's relationship, right? To me, it seems like there was still elements of mistrust, that they weren't completely communicating with each other. I mean, had Lydia said to her husband and been honest and said, look, there are feelings,
that might have created a whole other basket of...
But it's because... you can't, it's not just a simple answer, was it the right thing to do? Because there was more to it. Their relationship wasn't transparent. Neither of their relationships, Lydia's with Javier and Lydia with Sebastian. So I'm not sure if it was the right thing to do. And I'm not entirely sure if his motive was, Sebastian's motive to publish it was just because he wanted to tell the truth about something. I would suspect that maybe it was a bit of jealousy or a bit of...
Oh, okay. That's an interesting... That's an interesting take.
Yeah, a bit of maybe...
Subconscious
pushing the boundaries. How... I don't know.
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it would
what
be really interesting to
Leave us a comment. What do you think?
What do you think?
Now... How do you feel? Do you feel like when the two sisters come into the story, for me that added a softness, a padding, even though their stories is equally as heartbreaking, but to me it added a softness and a feminine sort of side to this brutal journey.
Yeah.
Do you think that the relationship that Lydia and Luca had with the sisters was an important one?
I think it was critical to the book.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I think it worked on a number of different levels. I think it worked as a plot device. The sisters... Lydia was very naive, had no, and Luca obviously was only 8, so had no knowledge of what they were going to have to do in order to make this journey and to survive this journey. So the fact that the sisters were already experienced in getting on and off the trains and getting off at towns and trying to avoid the police, and were able to impart that knowledge and help Lydia and Luca, I think was an important plot device.
Me too. I think it was integral to the plot.
I think it was also important to have them as characters that were there for a large part of the novel, because most of the other characters were transitory. We saw them for a short period of time,
that's true.
and then they disappeared.
Yeah, that's true.
I think it was important as a device to universalize the immigrant experience. Obviously they came from Nicaragua, and we had people also from El Salvador, so it wasn't just a Mexican experience. It was to emphasize the fact that these immigrants came from all over South America,
and that they all had individual stories
and similar stories of violence, and oppression,
different stories
and different stories,
an individual, I think you're right. I personally wasn't too convinced about it. I saw that it was integral to the plot, and it made it softer in a way, because little girls, and one of them's really beautiful and the other one's whatever, and it made it really soft. But I think you're right. I think it does actually add this. Makes it a little bit more encompassing to other journeys.
But I think actually going back though to your main point about the softening effect, I think that is very much there too. I think it was really important for Luca to have somebody else, for him to have a friend other than his mum. Because I think that enabled Luca to step up out of the role of being an 8-year-old boy and totally dependent on his mother, because he felt protective of Rebecca. So he almost aged and stepped up in responsibility. And in fact then became the help to Lydia.
You're right.
Because he of the relationship with Rebecca. And I think it was also important that Lydia was also seen as a mother figure by the girls, because they were missing a mother figure. So it wasn't only her relationship with Luca, it was also that growing relationship between her and the girls.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right, Luca does go on a journey. He really does. I mean, I was going to say, well, that then brings us to obviously the central relationship in the book, which is between Lydia and Luca. An extraordinary little boy. I mean, the thought, I know, gorgeous. I thought struck me, and I wonder how you feel about it, is that we were told that Luca was very late in talking. That for most of his 4 years he didn't, his first 4 years he didn't talk at all, and Lydia feared that he might have some sort of syndrome or some sort of intellectual impairment. But obviously he was as bright as a button. Why do you think he didn't talk for so long? I think with Luca, you very quickly, even from the opening scene, the way that he describes things, or the way that things are described around when they involve him, is he's very observant. And I think particularly for an 8-year-old boy, and it's that theme again of children pick up more than I think we give them credit
very
for.
Much so.
But yet still it's relative to their understanding of the world. And you see that through his obsession with maps, with geography.
Came in very useful.
Very useful. And I think when, maybe that's why he didn't speak much, because he was just so observant of things and trying to take in the world and create a better understanding. And you see a similar when you've just finished the opening scene and Luca's barely speaking again, and I think it's just a perfect example of how he's just trying to deal.
Yeah.
I mean, extremely complex things for anybody.
Yeah, I mean, and the
process.
imagery. I mean, Luca holding on to his father's baseball cap.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
with
exactly.
that I thought was absolutely wonderful. The smell and the shape and the holding on to that symbol of all that he'd lost.
He's just trying to process it. I think Luca's a very special boy, and I loved their relationship. And I loved how it developed with the girls, and at the end how they all live together.
And I think as part of the blurb, the publishing blurb about the book, they say, they talk about the lengths that a mother will go to protect her son. Now this obviously is stretching that to the absolute an unfathomable
extent.
And I think without actually asking you to comment on what you think you would do, because I don't actually even know. I actually don't even know what I would
wouldn't
do.
begin to think I have authority to even address that, But yeah, your heart aches for them, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Yeah, totally.
And you get these little glimpses of excitement when they have these small little
victories.
You're like, yes. And that's why I think I binged it, because I wanted more of the victories.
Yeah.
But what this book certainly did for me was open my eyes up to what's going on in the border. So I think, as you were reading this book, you may or may not have been aware that there's a significant amount of controversy about it.
Yeah.
A lot of press, a lot of conflicting opinions.
A lot of criticism.
Yeah. I mean, I think we need to address the elephant in the room.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
but that's quite difficult, isn't it? I mean, both of us, in fact, when I read the book, I was totally unaware of the criticism that had been levelled at the book. I read it purely at face value. I was not reading it in order for an authentic experience. I was reading it as purely as escapism, if you like, as a story that swept me along with it.
Which is generally what you look for in a good book, right? You look for a story that you just go, oh, wow, this is a lovely story.
Yeah.
But obviously this one has a lot more depth to it. Yeah. And I think Mum and I, before we came on this episode, we got together and we spoke about how we're going to discuss this controversy, and it made us both feel really uncomfortable and really nervous, just because we both don't feel like we have
a great amount of authority
to have any or much opinion about it. But maybe you can start a little bit by delving into what the controversy is.
Yeah. So the main controversy about the book has stemmed out of the United States, where the book was first published, largely from Latinx writers and the general community, who feel and have said quite vocally that the book is inauthentic, that it portrays cliches and stereotypes that do not represent the true immigrant experience, that the book is full of inaccuracies, and that the publishers spent an enormous amount of money in promoting a book which doesn't in fact portray anything like the real immigrant experience.
And they're angry about it.
And they're very angry about it.
And both Mum and I, before we came on this episode, we have done a significant amount of reading, and just trying to absorb as much information and different conflicting perspectives on the matter. And I actually have to say, I agree. I completely understand.
Yeah.
You know, it isn't, from what there are issues with the book that aren't completely there are issues within the book.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I think, sure, I agree with you, and I think the way in which the characters or the situation is portrayed, it is somewhat stereotypical, but that doesn't necessarily matter, I think, if the book is read as pure fiction. I mean, I think lots of media, be they movies or television shows or novels, are guilty of stereotyping.
Definitely. And I think what this book has caused and created, and I think what a lot of the anger is coming from, is that it's a much bigger issue than just one book.
Yeah.
It is created a conversation that talks about the inequality and the lack of diversity in the publishing industry, which is a huge thing to unfold. It's something that certainly I believe has been brewing for a long time.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it has all come down onto Jeanine Cummins' shoulders with this book.
Yeah, I mean, I think that yes, Jeanine Cummins isn't Latinx, and so therefore she can't speak with an authentic Latinx voice or experience. But she did, I believe, do a lot of research, talk to a lot of people in order to give it the best expression that she felt she possibly could. But back to the diversity as you were talking about, I think it's particularly pertinent in the United States, although the same could be said all over the world. All over the world, yeah. That publishing does tend to,
or has in the past not been inclusive of a range of individual stories. Yeah. And I think that what is happening is fantastic, that there's even these conversations these days because of a book like this that goes, you know what? We need to change, and the world needs to change, and we need to work together for everybody to feel heard. Yeah. And respected
and represented in an equal way.
Exactly. So I think what this book has done is brilliant with this controversy, because it's bringing up conversations, and it's bringing up conversations in groups that I mean, we're on the other side of the world. You know?
Yeah.
We're on the other side of the world, and because of this book, I feel so much more invested into what is happening in the border and how devastating and the heartache and what actually is going on.
And that, I think, actually is the irony of all of the debate and the criticism that's come from the book is that the author, in fact, wanted to introduce this dialogue, is that she actually wrote the book in order to highlight what was going on, albeit in perhaps inaccurate or stereotypical or cliched
or clumsy
way. But her intent was to shine a spotlight on this whole immigrant experience. And it kind of backfired in a way, although the book has become an absolute bestseller all over the world.
I think it's, do I think that the industry does need to change? Yes. But I do think this book has created that change and has been a catalyst,
yes,
for huge development.
Yeah, and I think for publishers to take a look at themselves and go, well, okay, how do we ensure that if we're going to publish something that brings forward an issue such as immigration or
illuminates other
issues, then we need to make sure that the way in which we promote them and publish them is in an authentic and realistic way.
Absolutely. And I think the one thing, though, that also has come up in this controversy is that a lot of people have spoken up and said, that Jeanine doesn't have the authority to speak about this. And I think that's also kind of a slippery slope with any artist, with dictating what they can and can't create. Yeah. I mean, I read this in Oprah's interview with Jeanine. She brings up this quote by Mitch Albom, and he's an author, a quite well-known author, and he says that when we start telling people not to write at all if they don't belong to a community, you're stepping on a dangerous live wire, one that could sizzle with less understanding between us, not more. And I believe that's true. If one starts to dictate what artists and what creatives or anybody has the freedom to say or to tell a story or create this imaginary world, which is what American Dirt is. It's fiction. Yeah. Then it's dangerous, because if we say one person can do this, one person can do that, we're not connecting.
No.
We're not allowing people to, we're giving them restrictions in which they can enter into a space. Yeah. Which I don't believe brings us any closer together.
Yeah. And I think I agree with you absolutely. I mean, I think the whole craft and skill of a fiction author is that they are able to imagine and to create a world or characters or situations beyond their own experience. And I guess the measure of how successful they are in doing that is how their work is then perceived. So do we feel that American Dirt is successful, is a success in that way?
I think when you open a book, I think it takes you to a place with characters on a journey that you've never been on before. Yeah. And if you can close that book and go, wow, I've learnt something, I've experienced something, I'm interested in something else, interested in elements of that, or I want to research more into that, then I think that book is a success because it has left you in a different place from when you picked it up.
Yeah.
And I think that's true for any type of art. If it's a movie, if it's a painting, if it's a photograph, I think that's what all creatives strive to do, is to leave you with something once you've left.
Yeah.
Once you've left the piece of art. And I think in that way, this book is a huge success, because if it wasn't for this book, we wouldn't be having this conversation, and we wouldn't be having this conversation with you. And I mean, it's intense, and it's opened my eyes up as well to go, I need to learn more. Art I believe is something that helps navigate us through something that we possibly didn't know before.
Yeah.
And so I would say, success. And I'm grateful for the experience of reading it. So we'd love big chats,
and we'd love to
heavy chats.
And we'd love to hear your thoughts. We don't begin to have all the answers, so let us know what you think.
It's that time of the episode again where we introduce our next book that you will be reading along with us.
Okay, so here is our next book, and Catie,
I know.
You're going to introduce it.
I'm totally hogging.
You're a hogger.
I know, I'm totally hogging, but I couldn't help myself. I wanted you to read this one with us. Where the next book is The Recovery of Rose Gold by Stephanie Wrobel, and it is a story about a mother and daughter.
Again.
And the poisonous relationship that they have between them. This book will leave you questioning the elements of humanity and how love can completely warp one's perspective on what is right and wrong.
I can't wait.
It's a goodie. I really liked this one. So,
until next time,
happy reading.
We hope you enjoyed watching this episode.
If you did, please leave us a comment below. We'll see you soon.